Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Morning Update Show. I am your host, Omari Salisbury.
And I'm also your host, Omari Salisbury. If you can pull it wide. Today, what a pleasure I have, honor and a pleasure. Trey on a holiday is out today, so I'm joined by the one and only Omari Salisbury.
Oh, the one and only Omari Salisbury. That's crazy. I know this great guy also named Omari Salisbury. Y'all would love him. He's amazing TV show host. Y'all just wait.
So there it is. So this is my son, Young O. He's been on this production since day one, back in March. Treyana is out today, and we thought it'd be great for him to fill in, so to speak. Man, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited. It's good to be involved. It's weird to be on this side of the camera, though. I'm used to being over there. I tell you what, boy, you look good on camera. I went into radio because I didn't have a face for TV, but I think one generation later, you might be able to be in front of the camera. All right, let's jump into the headlines. We got a big show for you today. We got Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best. She is in the building. We got lots of questions here from the community and everything else we want to hear about. She's talking about reimagining the Seattle Police Department. We want to hear from her what that looks like. But first of all, a little bit of recap from the weekend. One of our producers, Nikki Barron, she dropped in on the second annual Afrobite. That was up there in Skyway near the grocery outlet. Basically, it was like a mini. It was just a mini bite of Seattle, but it's a lot
dope.
more culture for you. I heard Nikki, she said she had some really good mac and cheese, so I'm kind of sad I missed out on that.
All right, let's play the clip.
Black business owners, small business owners, whether they're doing food or having their own little entrepreneurial t-shirts or jewelry. We got crystal readings and all that other kind of stuff out here. So yeah.
This is Hair Wraps by Kim. I had a hair wrap business before the pandemic, got shut out all the grants and loans, and me and my daughter started making face masks. So all my fabric is from Africa. I'm all around the city. I do events locally. Hair Wraps by Kim is my Facebook page.
Bring it in. So big shout out to Head Wraps by Kim. Made sure and got us some of these dope masks over here. I think you can find her on Instagram as well. Head Wraps by Kim.
Those are dope.
Oh, you're a big eater. What?
I'm like that. A mac and cheese food truck? You're telling me I missed out on that? I feel like if I would have known, I would have been there. That's all I got to say. If I would have known, would have been there.
Would have been there, huh?
Shout down.
I agree. So moving on to protests over the weekend, there was a lot of stuff, man. City stayed real active. People were out there in the streets. We got one protest, and then there's two that we highlight here in the show. And actually, they're putting some other segments together, probably for tomorrow or later on today. But the first one was the Uncle Ike's anti-gentrification protest that went from Capitol Hill down to my neighborhood on 23rd and Union.
Countless black people have been arrested on this corner for selling weed. And now a white man comes into town with some fancy ass license saying that Black Lives Matter, while he buys up all of the properties and he tries to say, oh, there were some vacant lots. Oh, I just bought them. What the fuck happened? Yeah, then you sold them to apartment management companies that filled those buildings with white people. Oh, well, we didn't know white people were going to move in. When you set the rent that fucking high, the people of the Central District cannot afford it. The Central District used to be the area with the highest concentration of black folks in the entire Pacific Northwest. 79% in 1980. Those numbers dwindled down to 16 to 33%, 2010.
This protest here went to our neighborhood, to the Central District.
And of course, if it's in the Central District, it's more of a party than it is a protest. They really seem like they were live out there. They had music, they had dancing.
I mean, everything has to have a little bit more flair if it goes to the CD. So the thing is with Uncle Ike, just to let everybody know, is that Uncle Ike has been a point of contention in the Central District for years. I think the main thing is that the Uncle Ikes went right there next to Mount Calvary. It's just a few feet between the church and the dispensary. It isn't necessarily that people have a problem with a dispensary. They have a problem with a dispensary right next to the church. And so this has been, Uncle Ike's has been a point of contention in the Central District, in the black community, literally for years. Just putting some context, people are like, what's going on with Uncle Ike's? What's this and that? It's been an issue if you go online and research it.
I mean, for sure. And it's hard to act like that Uncle Ike hasn't had a huge impact on the Central District and the changes that we've seen.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, there's still something to be said that a lot of people that we know from the community went to jail selling weed on 23rd and Union. And now Uncle Ike's is sitting there selling weed on 23rd and Union, making millions. And guess
millions.
No, but guess what the thing is though? If you've been arrested for selling weed, you can't get a job at a dispensary selling weed.
Like, that's something. They have on-job experience. Isn't that what they want?
On the job experience.
Like,
he's a comedian here. We got to bring him back more often. All right. So was it yesterday? The defend the blue. Don't defund. Basically, this is the SPOG. We covered this yesterday. I covered a previous one, which was probably about 3 weeks ago. But SPOG came down there to City Hall. And they were there, and then also counter protesters were there. So basically you had people who were against defund, which is SPOG, and people who were pro defund, which are protesters right there. You can roll this clip, Darryl.
The public officials on the city council are the ones committing unreasonable activism and only listening to the loud, small group that are committing a lot of these acts.
All right, so that was the SPOG rally yesterday, or SPOG protest yesterday.
yeah, and I feel like something you can notice about the SPOG protests is that, like, you see, like, the police, their relationship with the police is different because they're supporting them. Just like they have a sort of protection that, like, we didn't really have.
Well, one of the things we got Chief Best here is one of the comments we have is that did the police provide security? Or are the police there as a it's
like,
hard to
yeah,
tell.
maybe they're there to like stop
there.
conflict from occurring.
Right.
Like that could be their job, and maybe like there's not really choosing sides. Maybe they're just here to stop like from there being an incident to begin with.
Right. So a lot of people ask my opinion on things, and for the most part, we've just been sitting here trying to call it as we see it. There's a lot of stuff happening right now in City Hall and across our city, talking about this is the moment of change and everything else. And we see that there's lots of different voices out here, not only around the defund issue, but this issue as a whole of justice and equality here in the Emerald City. And I just want to point out that there's three things, three big things. There's more than three, but there's three things here that we should think about. And these are the things that you should be asking your city council members about, and even Mayor Durkin as she prepares to unveil her budget next month. And these are three things that every citizen in Seattle, for the most part, every citizen could agree on. Every citizen thinks that people should have good jobs, right?
Right.
Every citizen thinks that people who want to own a home should be able to buy a home.
For sure.
Every citizen wants great schools.
Without doubt.
Guess what? That's what black people want too. And
When people are in City Hall and they're not addressing those fundamental things, makes you kind of wonder, it's like, what's the big picture? Why do I say income? Darryl, please put up the slide. Why I say good jobs? Well, here you go. Thanks to the Seattle Times, here in the U.S. Census, black household in Seattle makes $42,500 a year. A white household makes $105,100 a year. Ladies and gentlemen, again, if we all love this city, these are the things that we should be talking about. How do we address this wage disparity? It's amazing that a black household can even subside in this city at $42,500 a year. Man, home ownership is what builds generational wealth. Next slide, please, Darryl. Here's home ownership here in Seattle, King County. You see in constant decline, and we talk about gentrification and everything else, and people being pushed out. Everybody in Seattle should want all people to be homeowners, regardless if you're on the left or the right. Home ownership build equity, they build generational wealth. And then the other big thing is, who doesn't want great schools? Well, let's put up this slide right here. If you look right here, the wide gap between whites and blacks in Seattle. Seattle is the bottom fifth. You see what I'm saying? Nationally, the gap between white and black kids in Seattle. So I bring all of that up to say that as people are discussing, they're making plans of how the new Seattle is going to look and everything else, my friends, if income is not addressed, if home ownership and generational wealth building is not addressed, if failing schools is not addressed, I promise you, we'll be back here again. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Those are three key fundamental things. I challenge you to ask your city council member, I challenge you to ask the mayor, what are they doing about those three big things? I wouldn't go on and on about it. I don't have time for it. But also, some people are like, well, maybe you guys are being hysterical or whatever. House Bill 1918 passed both houses unanimously last year, which said that African Americans in the Central District were systemically targeted. And guess what? Passed both houses and signed by Governor Jay Inslee last year. So when we talk about the Central District being systemically targeted and gentrification and policies, it's not a theory or a myth. It's an actual fact. Anything to say? I don't want to take all the air out your room now.
Nah, I totally agree with you. You can definitely see a difference in like how schools are like set up in Seattle. I didn't personally go to Seattle Public School. I went to O'Day, but it's definitely something I could still see from the outside, just looking in at what some kids had access to and what some kids did.
Of course. So, thanks for joining me. Thanks for sitting in for Treyana. I'll catch you after the next segment, because the next segment we got Chief Best.
Yes.
All right. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
There's a lot going on. Are you ready? Ready to feel better, look better, be better? Drink water. Be ready for a pickup game. Insta-frame to work hard towards your aim? Drink water. Hydrate. Hydrate to invest in yourself. Cut down on sugar. Invest in your health. Imagine the possibilities and reach your potential. Who knows what's next? Be ready. Be hydrated.
Do you want to represent your city? Now you can. The City of Seattle's Democracy Voucher Program is now open. Candidates interested in using democracy vouchers to help finance their campaign for 2021 may begin qualifying now. In 2021, the mayor, city attorney, and the 2 city council at-large positions will be on the ballot. The Democracy Voucher Program has $6.8 million available for local candidates to fund their campaigns. Running a competitive campaign can be costly, and access to funding can serve as a barrier to entry for potential candidates. The Seattle Ethics and Elections Commission is offering one-on-one trainings for potential candidates who want to explore how to access the democracy vouchers. Interested candidates can contact the Democracy Voucher Program at 206-727-8855 or email democracyvoucher@seattle.gov. For more information, you can also visit seattle.gov/democracyvoucher.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, the older Omari Salisbury. My fault, Youngo there in the first segment. He's actually going to his sophomore year at Loyola University studying broadcasting. I'm sure he's going to be much better than me. But hey, we're here, a big segment today. We've got Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best.
Good morning. Let me just jump in and say that younger Omari is a handsome young man. He's awesome. Looking good.
Stop smiling back there. Look at you. So we got a lot of questions, Chief. We're gonna jump right into it. But I did want to welcome you back here. We did an interview right here in this studio in June, and did quite a few outside. So I do want to welcome you back. Quickly here, and I know a lot of stuff isn't quick, but it's the morning show. City Council is voting. What does that mean for SPD?
Yeah, well, apparently, I don't want to jump in front of my skis here, but apparently there is going to be a reduction in the vote. I want to save comment for after they have their discussion and their deliberations today and determine where exactly cuts will be, if there are any, and what that looks like, and then be able to comment more fully when I have a full final package from City Council. Okay,
can you promise us? We'll have some kind of communication here?
I will definitely make comment once we have the final outcome.
So what you're saying is it's still fluid right now?
It is still fluid. They're still discussing it. It's hard to get in front of what they're doing before it's done.
All right, no problem. So you told Como, this is actually from Marcus Green of the Emerald. He said, you told Como News that you took the city council's desire to cut your salary personally. Do you think the race is playing a factor in their decision, as nobody on the council is black? For the first time in a long time, actually, there's nobody black on the city council.
Yeah, it's a fair question, but really it's a question best answered by the council, right? I'm not the one who did that and made that decision. That strictly came from the council. The reasons as to why, I think it's better explained by them than by me, but it certainly feels personal to me, absolutely.
All right, so, you said that the city council is trying to run your department, not an exact quote, but in the last press conference, it was basically like the city council is making decisions, trying to...
Yeah, no, what I really would like, honestly, there is a charter, the city charter, Article 4, Section 4, which says the chief manages the police department. It's there for everybody to read, and it's very clear. So the council, while they do have a lot of budgetary control and authority, they are not mandated through charter to run the police department. So I think we need to really make sure we have clear lines of responsibility about who's making those ultimate decisions.
Okay, so another question for you here then. Excuse me. What would the council have gained if they did? Because one of the other things you said is nobody reached out to you. And so, what would the council have gained anything from reaching out to you? And also, do you think, again, that your race plays into a factor here of why the council didn't reach out to you? Would they have reached out to a Norm Stamper? Would they have reached out to a Chief O'Toole?
Well, I will tell you this, that I think that reaching out to me, and not just me, but reaching out to the community as well, would have been given them diversity of thought, diversity of opinion. I always have believed that bringing more people, more voices to the table allows you to have a fuller perspective and a better picture about where people are going. And so why would you not talk to others, particularly me, having been here for almost 30 years. Even if you don't agree with that opinion, you ought to hear the perspective. And actually, the fact that I am the chief gives me that level of insight that they should be talking to me.
All right, so this city council, do you have the Q13 clip, Darryl? That's Q13 that's up there. So we want to play this clip right here from Q13 they put out yesterday or 2 days ago. Simone Zario and Brandon.
I haven't
got
seen
it.
it.
There you go. It's right there. Let's start that from the beginning. Volume up. Let's play this clip. You can just turn that way. You'll be able to see it on the screen.
Turn like this.
Yeah. So just
Council mulling a major overhaul on the city's police force. In just a matter of days, the Office of Police Accountability is investigating whether officers used unlawful force against journalists during a recent riot. Seattle police telling us it may be difficult for the officers to tell the difference between protesters and journalists during all the chaos, and that sometimes journalists may be inadvertently hit.
Q13 Simone Del Rosario and Brandon Davis obtained video at the center of an investigation.
Oh, he just threw it. What are you doing? Damn it.
Caught in the chaos or a reckless disregard for journalist safety.
Into the crowd, you see the... Oh,
These scenes playing out during a Seattle police proclaimed riot the last Saturday of July.
media!
The police treat the press and just the same as they would a protester. There's no difference.
Despite the danger, independent journalist Chris Rojas
I think this is a top to one of these.
is determined to document these moments.
If bad things happen and no one's there to film it, then it'll just go and continue. Journalists are obligated to stay in areas like that to shine light on things that are hidden.
It's the same drive that drew him to Iraq as an embedded photojournalist during the war. Back in Seattle, he says the sounds on the street are traumatizing.
To hear that in Seattle, it is very unusual to feel like, oh, this is like Iraq. This is like being in a war zone.
The munitions may be different, but like Iraq, he says being press doesn't protect him, even though policy says it should. Seattle police told us it is always possible when standing on the line of a protest that a journalist or citizen observer may be inadvertently hit with a less lethal munition.
This is the first time I've been back here since Saturday.
So you're literally picking up pieces of what you believe is what they threw at you.
But Seattle Gay News staff writer Renee Ricchetti says she was far from the protest line when police threw a blast ball her way.
This is incredible.
Days later, the pieces are still here.
It's just all over the place. To see the physical blast ball myself really upsets me because I was just sitting there doing my job. I didn't deserve this.
Sitting on this fire escape alone, taking a break from the action, she says she happened to be recording with her professional camera when you see a bike officer walk her way and casually lob a blast ball beneath her. Embracing for the blast, she accidentally stopped recording, but the impact and the evidence remains.
So I had to watch the video over and over and over again just to believe it myself. And if I hadn't documented it on video, I wouldn't believe it happened.
When shown the video, Seattle police told us it is difficult to say whether this blast ball deployment is justified or not, as we are not able to see the activities prior to the recording. The officer's actions are under review.
If there is any evidence whatsoever that a police officer purposely targets a member of the media or legal observer,
He's tagged, he's got his media stuff on, he's got a credential.
those complaints get directed immediately to OPA, an independent investigative body that will investigate them, and Chief Best will hold them accountable.
Many of the journalists behind these cameras say they do not want to become the story.
Oh, my head is... Oh, damn it! Ah!
They want to document the story and let the footage speak for itself. In Seattle, Simone Del Rosario, Q13 News.
Now, after many reports of journalists and legal observers facing police force during protests last week, the mayor asked multiple oversight agencies to review and update the Seattle Police Department's policies and training around identifying and protecting those covering the demonstrations.
The Office of Police Accountability continues to collect evidence for cases like these, including looking at officer body cam video and interviewing witnesses. But I got to say, that was eye-opening.
All right, Chief. So you just saw this segment here that Simone and Brandon put together over at Channel 13. What do you think of that segment there?
You know, I think that obviously there's some concerns there, but anytime there's a situation, and I think the mayor even brought this up, anytime there's a situation where people are questioning, you know, the actions of the officers, and they bring it to light, you know, it's got to be investigated, it's got to be looked at.
Sure, but are you comfortable as somebody was out there, and I don't want to take up too much time on myself.
Sure.
We got a lot of other questions that are out there. And it's on the stream. Like all of us press are together. We made sure to huddle together. We're all either wearing press or saying press, media, and it didn't stop. It didn't stop us from really getting hit with all this. Now I understand front line, and that's why I learned early on not to be in the middle of these barricades, and because it's hard to identify people when you're in the middle. But we all rallied over there to the side. It's a lot of people that feel, and I think there's some lawsuits going, that SPD targeted members of the media.
Yeah. Well, I'm not aware of that, honestly. That's not the policy. That should not be happening. But, it's all going to be investigated. We're going to make sure. I think there are, though, some inherent risk when you are in the middle. I mean, I think that's fair enough to, to say that there are some inherent risk. But with that said, if somebody is actually targeting the journalist or anyone else in the crowd that's not engaged in any illegal behavior, it's got to be looked at. Absolutely.
Right. Why is it so hard, though, for not only SPD, for police departments to just come out and see something that might not be right and just be like, you know what, that's not right. And why is it? It seems like it's such a rigid thing, and I don't know if it's because of the unions, because of contracts, or whatever. It's difficult for police to just be like, I got it wrong. I mean, an example is during July 25th, I was out there on my stream, and I see a streamer behind the police lines. And on my stream, I'm like, look, the police got a streamer out there. You share, the police need to share the stream. Your public information officer called me the next day, called me that day and was like, hey, that wasn't us, that was Como. I came on my show that Monday and I said, guess what, guys? I got it wrong. It turns out that was Como. And that's usually how a lot of people, businesses, organizations work. Why is it that if there's something wrong, because no organization is perfect, I'm sure there's problems in your force, why is it people can't just be like, hey man, this was wrong?
Well, they do have a lot of due process and rights for the officers too. So we have, and I say it all the time, we have one of the most robust complaint systems in the country. Everybody looks at everything. The Office of Professional Accountability, the Office of Inspector General, the Community Police Commission, everybody has insight into what occurred, to evaluating statements, to taking in information and evidence. There is a process where if an officer is accused of something and says, yep, that was me, and they can go to mediation or they can do expedited processing, so that it's just, there's no big investigation that has to follow. But they do have rights and they do have due process that comes with it. And as a chief, unless it is absolutely, absolutely specifically clear, I do make decisions on discipline, but I usually wait until that whole process comes in, because coming in ahead of time has me tainted one way or the other.
Is the process methodical? I mean, is there, it seems that there's a lot of processes in Seattle that are on the slow boat. We had County Executive Dow Constantine on the show a week or two ago. We talked about the inquest process and how slow that's moving, lawsuits and everything else. I mean, how fast or slow do the wheels of justice turn? Either way, something might vindicate an officer or it might indict an officer, but how fast or slow is this process?
Typically, the OPA, the Office of Police Accountability, has up to 180 days or 6 months to complete an investigation. So, and in that 6 months, I'm just telling you, those are the rules. So in that 6 months time, they can get it done in 90 days, great. They can get it done in 30, even better. If they can have some sort of expedited process. But they have generally up to 180 days and can ask for, if they need it, an extension. So those are the rules. It would be good if you brought in Andrew Meyerberg to talk about that process.
What's his name?
Andrew Meyerberg.
Andrew Meyerberg. Can I get there you go, Darryl. Andrew Meyerberg, OPA. We want you to come in here because I'll be honest with you, Chief. That when I hear you and I hear the mayor and talk about complaints with police or anything else, it's always like, talk to this guy. It's almost like when you go to a restaurant and on the receipt, it's like, let us know how we're doing and this and that, which is much different than the chef coming over to your table or the manager coming over to your table. So it's like the public just keeps hearing, go to OPA, go to this and that. I mean, and
I don't know. It's going to be good to talk to Andrew to see how user-friendly the process is there. I've never been to OPA. I haven't filed any complaints, so I don't know. So maybe Nikki will make a segment taking people through the public.
I think that would be really important because people really don't know the process and they don't understand it. Something that happened, they go, Chief, we should fire this person right now. And it's like, I can't do that. There's a whole discipline system that it goes through. And then it's brought to me, and then people do get fired, but it's never going to be usually that same day that something occurred, unless it was something so egregious that that it had to be.
Right, Chief. Is there a sense of silence as well within the SPD? Coming from the Black community, one of the things that SPD and a lot of community organizations have said is that Black community needs to break the silence on Black crime and especially Black on Black murders and everything else. And that a lot of progress that we've made in our community, if people broke the silence, maybe they know where a gun is at, or maybe they know someone who killed somebody. Is there also a culture of silence within the Seattle Police Department where other officers might stay silent? They're not breaking the silence themselves?
I think, in all fairness, I think at some point there may have been, but we have moved since we've been under the consent decree. All those issues I hear about all the time, the wall of silence, the thin blue line, all of that. Almost half of the complaints on officers come from other officers, not from the public. And we have a direct policy that says you have a duty to report if you see something illegal or immoral or unethical. And if you don't, then you, as well as the person engaged, are also subject to discipline. So I think that, while it sounds like, to some people good to say, I don't think the data bears it out when you have almost as many officers filing complaints as you do the public about what other officers may or may not have done. So I think we're moving the needle on the culture of being open and honest. Not to say that it's perfect, so I'm not trying to run that game, but it's just I do believe we've advanced. We've advanced a lot, and I do see that.
All right. So yesterday at the SPOG rally, they were saying that there were lots of signs there, people kind of saying that the chop killed Lorenzo Anderson. According to the prosecutor says that Marcel Long is actually the one who killed Lorenzo Anderson. And we'll talk about the use of his name here in a minute. But they're saying that the chop killed Lorenzo, but there wouldn't have been a chop if the SPD did not abandon the precinct. I was there that day, and that morning there was a fence being built across Pine, and by the afternoon the precinct was gone. And then what happened was Chaz and then Chop. And the protesters never asked the police to leave the building. What responsibility does the Seattle Police Department take in the formation of Chaz and then what became Chop? And can you tell us who gave the order to vacate the precinct?
Yeah, that question comes up all the time. So a couple of things. I think very clearly the police did not create the CHOP zone, the Capitol Hill organized protests. I don't think there's any officer that would stand up and say I was a part of the Capitol Hill.
You don't think de facto by leaving your precinct, though,
yeah, I absolutely
created
do not.
it?
I do not think that, Omari. I do think, here's what I do think, that people came in, we had days, as you were out there every single night, days and days and days of protests right here at 11th and Pine, a real flashpoint for police and protesters. And it was a continuous cycle. So the decision was made to remove the barricade, to remove the barrier, to allow people, if they have the street, then there won't be this, contention point, and there won't be these other issues that flare up. So that was agreed upon to do. And so in doing so, there was a concern, two different things. One, the fire chief said he was concerned about the building being set afire because there had been a history of that, and that the building was vulnerable. And two, the sensitive information and weapons that were in the building. So the decision was made by the folks in the building on the ground to move all the stuff out of the building in case there was a problem, in case there was a fire. That was my understanding of it. That's how it was explained to me. They moved out of the building. They go to get back into the building, not to walk out forever and a day, but to get all the crap out of there that they needed to get out of there, and then to come back to the building. Couldn't get back in the building because the very barricades that we had lifted, another group had come in and put barricades all around and were precluding the entry of the officers back into the building. And that is what happened, and that is the truth. I have no reason to tell anything but the truth.
Are you saying that your intention was to reduce the footprint at the East Precinct, and in doing so,
Once you did that, officers could not return back to the
That's
East
exactly
Precinct?
what I'm saying. That is exactly what I'm saying. And that's my understanding of the events.
Well, so you're the chief.
Yeah.
Stops with you.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
The buck stops right there, Chief.
Yeah.
So, but you don't feel then if we go down this route that you're saying, it's like, okay, you wanted to reduce your footprint, get your sensitive information out of the building.
Tried to get back in, couldn't get back in, physically precluded from getting back in. And then to be honest, no, let me just finish here. But then to be honest, there was really not the political will to move people from the CHOP. There were people saying it was a block party. There were city agencies bringing in porta potties. The fire department's handing out sanitizers and hand wipes. There's a big garden in the middle of the park. There was no political will for anybody to move that zone until the crime started being so prevalent that we had to get in there and move it. I'm just not going to take responsibility for folks coming in there.
I've heard you mention Chief Scoggins twice now. Did
I love
fire
Chief
department
Scoggins.
and police have some issue around this?
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you that there were people who were more helping and conciliatory initially when it started than at the end where all the crimes were occurring.
So just to be clear, the Seattle Police Department doesn't take any type of responsibility for the formation of the CHAZ or the CHOP.
Yeah, the Seattle Police Department was not involved in creating the Capitol Hill Organized Protest Zone.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying you guys run the organizing committee and that you guys were part of the public assembly or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of, it's like the circle. Everybody's pointing a finger around here in the circle.
Yeah, I'm not trying to point the finger. I'm just telling you the facts as I know them. You know, I feel like the truth is the best way to address any of these issues. I'm just giving you the truth of the matter. And the best people to talk about, what was happening in and around and at the CHOP are the folks who were there. They'll tell you what their point and purpose was. I mean, the few times I came down here, you were here most of the time. I was like, well, who's in charge? What's going on? They're like, we don't have a leader. I mean, it was very difficult to figure out what it was and what was happening there. But I would not say that the Seattle Police Department was facilitating the CHOP.
All right, I think that's a point that's going to remain in contention. It could be.
We'll
be talking about that for a long time. Let me ask you this though: you as in the police, the city, everybody. You want the citizens to trust you. You want the citizens to trust the Seattle police. You want the citizens to trust the city of Seattle. I was there. The Saturday was crazy downtown. I was there that Sunday, and it was an 8-9 hour stream, a very peaceful march. And I watched the protesters get turned away twice at the East Precinct. And that's what precipitated them coming back the next day.
Right.
So how come if you want the people to trust the police, how come the police in the city didn't trust the people enough to just keep marching up Pine? You blocked the and in the video we'll get you here in 1 second. In the video, you said that the Seattle Police Department, not you per se, but in the video says Seattle Police Department should not be held responsible for things that happen in other departments. Okay, that's reasonable. But in that case, just because a precinct burned in Minneapolis, where it's a different people out here.
I would agree that.
It seems like the sentiment might have been like, oh, well, man, these guys might burn down the precinct. And that's what you're saying. That was a fear of Scoggins as well. How come there wasn't enough trust of the citizens, of peaceful people that had gathered? They were trying to just walk past.
Mari, I do trust peaceful people and peaceful citizens. And a lot of folks are out there with no intent on harm and danger. I absolutely believe that. But the truth of the matter is there were people in the group who were intent on harm and danger. You were here. You saw the street. You saw the rocks, the bottles, there's no way of getting around what we saw right out here in front of your building. So while most of the protesters weren't, there were people who were here. And I would say, in hindsight being what it is, we probably should have looked at a different way of addressing that, because a lot of folks.
Well, it's good to hear you say that, because
it's true.
Or that copious amount of tear gas might not have been the correct route.
Absolutely,
and also,
I agree with that.
If I could say this, something that we don't hear you say and don't hear Mayor Durkin say or acknowledge is the residents. So it's always, well, it's the protesters this and the police were injured, the protesters did that. But every time that there's a flashbang, you know, I don't know how much you watch the show, but Robert Flagg, he's an Iraq War veteran with PTSD who lives over here in 12th Avenue Arts, triggered every time that he hears a flashbang. When one of our producers has asthma, was stuck up there because and didn't have her inhaler because of the smoke, whatever the chemical is in there.
Right.
What have you guys done to talk about the residents and even address that? I know that you can't come off the bat and say that your officers did something wrong or anything like that. You've explained that process. But where's the olive branch to the people who've been living through this?
Yeah, I think it's really been very traumatic for a lot of people who are living through this on a whole lot of different fronts. You mentioned the fact that the blast balls caused, you know, some consternation. I stood here at that telephone pole, I can see it right there, and I listened to 5 M80s go off on the other side. So there was a lot of noises and everything that affected everybody from both sides. And we have to own our piece of it, and we will own that.
But man, you're right. There were M80s and everything else, but I'm talking to the Seattle Chief of Police, and not whoever threw the M80s. And I'm talking to the Seattle Chief of Police about what are you guys doing? Because I don't hear you or the mayor ever mention the everyday people who just happen to live here. And by the way, a lot of people became protest. We have it on interview. They were like, well, I was kind of minding my business, but then this tear gas went into my house, and then X, Y, and Z, and now they're out there in the front line. I think that's something that you probably, you know, the city, yourself, somebody needs to talk to. Everyday people as well are impacted because the conversation is very polarized. It's just protester or police.
Right, I agree with you. And listen, you get no argument here. The people who were most affected were the residents and the businesses in this area, and their voices need to be heard. Some of the business members have already filed a lawsuit, you know, but for the community folks, I mean, there needs to be more dialogue about what happened and what they go through. And I think that happens every time there's another protest up here. And I also would say this, when it comes to using tear gas, it had been a vetted and approved process, but in hindsight, clearly, very clearly, that is not what the people of Seattle want to see. So we have to look at, you know, other means of dispersing crowds, or maybe not dispersing crowds. I think that conversation has to be had. And I think I can certainly acknowledge that it didn't go the way we wanted it to go in the end of the day.
Right. I just got a few more questions. I know you're busy. We want to talk about your reimagination plan here. But like I said, at the SPOG event, was it yesterday, Nikki? Yeah. Yesterday. So Lorenzo Anderson, rest in peace. His name was brought up a lot out there and brought up around CHOP and everything else. And I would say this to the people at SPOG: if you're gonna put out the name of a young black man who was killed, there's 6 other names since June 20th, since Juneteenth here in the city of Seattle. You know, their names need some awareness as well. If that's the route that you're going out there, we want to make sure you're not using Lorenzo Anderson Jr.'s name as just some kind of ploy. So more than happy to talk to you guys more about that. Speaking of that though, and I'm hot, you know, but I'm gonna save it for another show. Speaking of Lorenzo Anderson Jr., I reached out to the public information officer at Seattle Police Department because I wanted to know, since June 19th, or June 20th was actually the day he was killed, but Juneteenth celebrations, there's been 6 murders of black men, black people here within the city. Tell us, man, what's going on with this? What's the SPD doing? What's happening? Because we're talking about the value of black lives. You know, I think it's important, while I have the chief of police here, that it isn't all just about the protests or the Black Lives Matter protests, but we need to talk about the value of black lives here in the Central District, the CD, across the city of Seattle.
Right. Well, you know, I can tell you this, we've had an increase in homicides this year, and while I don't have the exact number in front of me, the number is always more black men on that list than anything else. And every single one of those homicides, whether they're black, white, male, female, or whatever, are incredibly important. And we investigate each one of them to the fullest to make sure, because every single one, you know, while people are concerned about what happens in other areas, every single one of those homicides, there is a mother, a sister, a brother, somebody who is, you know, feeling the pain of that loss. And so, you know, we take each and every one very, very, very seriously. I can't speak to what was on some protester sign yesterday, but I can tell you as an organization, every single one of those lives matter. Every single one. Every person who's been, every family who is suffering through the loss of a loved one through homicide or murder.
All right, and we're getting ready to play a snippet of your video here in 1 second. Well, so you bring that up because you said you can't speak to what was on protester side yesterday. That was a SPOG event. Is SPOG and Seattle Police Department aligned? Seattle Police Officers Guild and SPD. When Mike Solon speaks, does he speak for the chief and the police? When the police chief speaks, do you speak for SPOG? There's a lot of confusion on the streets right now, so I don't know if you want to take this chance to clarify.
The Seattle Police Officers Guild is a union, and the union is responsible for wages, benefits, and working conditions, and the contract of their union members, which in this department happen to be officers, detectives, and sergeants. And so, and that is their responsibility. As a police chief, under the charter, the chief is to manage the department. You know, the policies, the procedures, the discipline, all of that comes under the auspices of the police chief, and not the union wages, benefits, and working conditions. So there's a clear delineation between the two.
All right, Chief. So we want to, we've got about a 1 minute clip here of the video that the Seattle Police Department released. It's called Bridging the Gap. We'll play this right now and have some follow-up questions for you.
Black Lives Matter! Or maybe it's time we realize that to have a truly united community, we can no longer take sides.
When you see what's happening in our country, it is not hard to be outraged. Our community, no matter race, creed, color, or sexual orientation, is closer than some would lead us to believe.
This has never been an easy conversation, but I promise you, we are committed to listening, learning, and changing. This department is here for this city, its residents, and its visitors. We will enact the change that our community and our country and our world deserve moving forward together.
All right, Chief. We can do a whole show about questions about the video, but I'm gonna stick to 2 questions. One, why now?
Well, I think it's important that we humanize officers to the people, and people are concerned about, you know, what's happening in our organization, what's happening with the police department, you know, and I wanted to show we have a diverse organization. We're trying to make it more diverse and reflect the community that we serve. And also, these issues that are coming up, everybody's aware of the issues. People here in this organization want to move forward and join and make things better. Who doesn't want to make their work environment better?
I think that everybody probably does.
Yep.
But the thing is that was this video timed around this? You got a vote today around defund. Is this part of your PR strategy for people who might want to sway a city council member? I mean, also, us, Converge, and other people have been saying that people have been wanting to talk for a while. And I know, and not just protesters, because I know it's been times where you have been out here, and I'll give you credit on that. You have been out there. You would call us up. Who do we talk to out there? Like, man, you know, it's a leaderless resistance. Right. So I mean, putting just protesters to the street, to the side, and actually a lot of them have emerged now into a position where it could actually sit down in a face-to-face, and we see that now. But how come it's taken the Seattle Police Department and the mayor's office and a lot of the city council people is taking people going and marching in the streets and everything to have conversations when these conversations could have been occurring a while back? And the reason why I say that is you have a city office, it's different than police, so it's apples and oranges, so I want to be fair. Seattle Public Utilities, they're constantly out here. Mommy Hara has been out here. Adrice, they've been out here. They've walked these streets. They've built relationships. And I know it's hard for the chief, as a chief, to be out here every day and this and that. But what has Seattle Police Department done to even try to build relationships? Because now a video is coming out. It's right here before defund. And so you got some people look at the video and, to be honest with you, they're like, man, this is awesome. I'm glad that the chief is putting this out there. And other people were like, well, man, this is a PR stunt. How come they didn't talk about this sooner? I
would disagree with you. You know, and I would just talk to people in the community. I have been out talking to community members for really my whole career. You know, making relationships, building relationships. The clergy that came forward and others who have come forward on my behalf, it wasn't because they didn't know me. You know, I would say we have always been engaged, invited to meetings, coming out to those meetings. The first thing I did when I became the police chief was create the Collaborative Policing Bureau, because I wanted to have a mechanism to have outreach and engagement with the community that had nothing to do with being confrontational, where it had nothing to do with enforcing, but actually building the relationships and having ways that we can engage with community on programs, no matter what they are, so that they can build those relationships. And so I think we're working really hard at it. Clearly, there's more we can do. I mean,
I think there's a lot more that can be done, Chief.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to just dump it all on your shoulders,
Sure,
but there's a lot more that can be done. You know, people want discussion, and that's what you see. People are wanting communication. They're wanting to talk. They don't want to be talked at anymore. They want just leaders to come out and listen. And you know, something from our side, other people's side has been saying, you guys need to do some town halls and things like. Seattle's one of the few cities where there hasn't been a town hall discussion. And you're a police chief. I know your skin is thick. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the mayor's skin is definitely thick. It's armor plated. But you guys got to get out there and really hear what people are saying, because in other cities, even where there's people in the streets, a conversation, an authentic conversation is started. And really, we'd be looking for the Seattle Police Department, Office of the Mayor, and other people to just, get out there.
I think I agree with you. And I would just say I think we have been out there in a lot of ways. I do think COVID-19 makes it a lot more difficult. I've tried to engage in some community meetings, people logging in, virtual.
Zoom,
you know,
they buffering, huh?
Yeah, and then there's, you don't get to see their face because they turn off their video. It's not the same as being able to. So we got to find a mechanism in which to do it. It's not the same as being able to. I often went out to community meetings, sat down at the table, broke bread with my Muslim brothers and sisters and other people in the community, and really had those conversations, played with their kids. It's a little more difficult now in this environment, so we have to find a way to be able to have those large meetings, those town halls that aren't so mechanized and technological. But whatever we have to do it, I'm willing to do it. We've been, but I will say before that, we had been having lots and lots of meetings with community people. And I think if you check, you'll see that I've always been open to talk to people.
I mean, there's officers even through this protest. Sergeant Gogan, people have been seeing him on my stream. Gogan.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Memory is crazy.
Yeah.
Gogan.
Yes.
Right, Sergeant Gogan, somebody who's been on our stream now for 2 months, and he first got on the stream right here on the Western Barricade because all the other officers were in riot gear, and he came down in uniform and was just talking to the protesters, like, man, hey, what's going on? What's up? What's this? What's that? And every time I've seen him on the stream, it's always an engaging conversation. There's definitely officers that are on your force that are able to build some kind of instant rapport with the public. Even the public disagrees. Clearly, he was on the other side of the line of the protesters.
Exactly.
I don't know if they necessarily agreed with him, but they're able to have a conversation with him. Yeah. How important do you think it is to have people like the sergeant there involved in this process who have an ability to be able to spark conversations?
Yeah, I think everybody should be able to do that, because I tell the officers often, and I mean it sincerely, every interaction is an opportunity to either build a relationship or to break a relationship. Even if you're arresting somebody, you can arrest a person respectfully, and create an opportunity there, or you can do it a different way and create a problem. Right, so
this is true. They're telling me we're short on time. It's good. I only got 2 questions left for you, and it's about the future here. There's a saying that in every crisis there creates an opportunity. And a lot of times when we're interviewing people, we had the school board on here the other day. We're like, it's a crisis going on. What's the opportunity? And they talked about it. Chief, what is the opportunity that's out there for you now through this crisis?
Yeah, if you're talking about for the police department, I believe the opportunity is to do just what you're saying, to hear other voices and to bring those things up. I talked about re-envisioning, but that really is what it is we've done the consent decree stuff. You talk about having real-time conversations. We need to start also, while we're taking care of all the administrative and bureaucratic issues, have a deeper and more resonating conversation with the community. And I think that is the opportunity to really hear and to see how we might do things differently or better. How maybe, for example, maybe we don't have to have an officer respond to a crisis call. Maybe someone else can do that. But who is that person? I've heard them say, we're going to send out a social worker or an MHP. That's great. Well, where are they? Have you hired them? Have you vetted them? And by the way, being a social worker does not mean you're not racist. So how are you going to vet and make sure that the people you bring in are doing the change that you want to see? And those conversations should be occurring.
Last question for you, Chief. They said that you're on the clock here. Is that, unfortunately here in the city of Seattle, all across America, appointed officials like yourself and elected officials, they come with grand plans. They try to capture the public's imagination. You've put yourself out there with this reimagination. But to be honest with you, Chief, you need a lot of buy-in to be able to make this reimagination happen. What are you going to do to get buy-in from your union? What are you going to do to get your buy-in from a city council who right now won't even talk to you? What are you going to do to get buy-in from the public? You need all these stakeholders to buy into your reimagination. Right. It seems like it's an uphill push for you.
Well,
what's the plan?
The buy-in, in order to get buy-in, people need to be a part of whatever it is that's out there. So when re-envisioning isn't saying me telling people what needs to happen, it is saying we need to have that conversation. So that if it's your idea, I bet you, Mari, if you put an idea out there, you're going to support your idea. So how we re-envision is people coming together and bringing forth what's our common ground, what things do we think need to happen, so that we can get the buy-in that we need so the stakeholders will move it forward. And I agree with you. City Council talking in their little echo chamber, without bringing buy-in from other people in their virtual world is not true buy-in. And it does not represent and reflect the feeling and the meaning and the want of the community at large. So I would agree with you 100%. You have to have buy-in. In order to get that buy-in, you have to talk to people.
All right, let's see what happens. Let's keep the conversation going. Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having it. Thank you for coming here. And I'm sure that, speaking of conversation, we'll keep our conversation going.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Stay right there. 1 second. We're going to go to break. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
There's a lot going on. Are you ready? Ready to feel better, look better, be better? Drink water. Be ready for a pickup game. Insta-frame to work hard towards your aim? Drink water. Hydrate. Hydrate to invest in yourself. Cut down on sugar. Invest in your health. Imagine the possibilities and reach your potential. Who knows what's next? Be ready. Be hydrated.
Do you want to represent your city? Now you can. The City of Seattle's Democracy Voucher program is now open. Candidates interested in using democracy vouchers to help finance their campaign for 2021 may begin qualifying now. In 2021, the mayor, city attorney, and the 2 city council at-large positions will be on the ballot. The Democracy Voucher program has $6.8 million available for local candidates to fund their campaigns. Running a competitive campaign can be costly, and access to funding can serve as a barrier to entry for potential candidates. The Seattle Ethics and Elections Commission is offering one-on-one trainings for potential candidates who want to explore how to access the Democracy Vouchers. Interested candidates can contact the Democracy Voucher Program at 206-727-8855 or email democracyvoucher@seattle.gov. For more information, you can also visit seattle.gov/democracyvoucher.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury.
And I am also Omari Salisbury.
It's like stereo surround sound in here today, huh? Hello, 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 hello. All right, so you just saw the segment there with Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best. It went a little long, but I think it was worth it. Great segment.
No, it definitely was. I always enjoy hearing what she has to say. It really just, I feel like us as like the people of Seattle, like we don't really get a lot of questions answered. And I know whenever she comes on, there's like a lot of holes filled in.
A lot of questions for the police. I mean, a lot. We didn't even get through a third of them, but we're thankful to have her time.
And we're going to continue the discussion down there and see who else we have. We'd love to talk to Mayor Durkin, reach out to the mayor's office. We reached out to them, but it's been a lot of movement at City Hall. So hopefully we can get the mayor down here. We have KY King Garrett, Africa Town here tomorrow.
Oh, okay, that should be dope.
All right. So last week in our podcast series, The Citizens of CHOP, we continued recording. A lot of you guys saw Nas. Nas, she's a member of the Black Collective Voice. We saw Nas during when CHOP was still here, part of the educational process up there. She also worked with the Harriet Tubman Center for Safe Passage. She dropped by on Friday and asked her what she's been up to.
All right, so man, out here with Just Call Me Nas. Last time I saw you, the chop was still chopping.
Right.
So it's been a minute. But what have you been up to since the chop's been cleared and everything else?
Organizing for sure. Just this week specifically, I have been focusing on having conversations with people that I met out of CHOP, organizations that I already knew before CHOP, in an effort to just really unify us, the Black community out here. I attended the People's Assembly on Monday, which I hadn't been to since CHOP, and just in an effort to again unify. So going full force with Harriet Tubman Foundation, making that my main focus right now. So fundraising for Harriet Tubman Foundation, and that vision is that we will support Black creatives, Black activists, Black-led organizations in their efforts to end racism and empower the Black community.
All right, so you can check the latest episode of Citizens of the CHOP with Nas, Just Call Me Nas. Right now, it's up on our website, whereweconverge.com, or you can go to Converge Media's podcast platform on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud. We out there, son.
Yeah, nah, you guys are big timing now. It's crazy.
Trying to be big time like you. And one other thought here, but before we get out of here, this is a big news coming from our new hockey team. I'm still trying to understand everything about the Krakens, but we have do you have that snippet there, Darryl? Yeah, no, there it is. He's on the Soul Patrol. This is the Kraken's announcer. His name is Everett Fitzhugh, and he's the first Black team broadcaster. Everett Fitzhugh. We're gonna reach out to the Krakens and see if we can get a sit down with Everett.
So that's dope to see. That's always something nice to see. He's a first in his field.
All my Mariners gear on here.
I'm more of a Krakens fan than I am a Mariners fan right now. But I'm waiting for my jersey to come in.
All right, there it is. Ready to take a stand?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So are you back tomorrow?
You're
behind the camera tomorrow.
No, I'm back behind the camera tomorrow.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best for joining us as well. And until 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, this is the Morning Update Show. Peace.
Peace. We didn't say it in sync. Damn.
1, 2, 3.
Peace. Hey, that was fire.
Clear voice and sing, dealer than heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of
of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.